That's it. We are live. Hello and welcome everyone to episode 52 of the IT India Digital Conversations. Thank you so much for joining us today for what seems to be a cracker of a session with an august panel of industry leaders and system integrators who have been keeping us busy or who are going to keep you busy rather over the next 90 minutes on the topic from telcos to technos, the path to the future. Now, over the past decade, telecom service providers have been under continuous pressure as their traditional value pools have gradually eroded and new growth horizons have proven elusive as the competitive landscape has changed. While telcos rose to the challenge in 2020, connecting people to their work, school, colleges, family, as well as healthcare, COVID 19 somehow accelerated and amplified the trends that were already redefining the basis for success. Enterprises that move early to restructure and change during such times come out ahead in the subsequent decade and enjoy a competitive advantage. Therefore, this year, 2022, will be rather critical year for the telcos as it presents a unique opportunity to fundamentally reimagine their business operations and business models, or alternatively risk another decade of revenue and profitability decline. The next generation of telcos will be defined by the leaders who act now, risking short term incumbency advantages to seize untapped opportunities to propel future growth. With that, I am Suman Bhaumik, your host for the series, and I lead the events development and projects for the IT in India. But before we begin our session, while we are still talking about the path to the future, please allow me to take a couple of minutes and tell you a little bit about some of the exciting updates from the world of the IT. Now, from the team that brought to you the extremely successful IoT India Congress, which was the most important technology event for the stakeholders in this region, or technology stakeholders in this region, we bring to you a brand new tech event that you just can't miss. Born in the wake of the pandemic and the new paradigm shift that our world is going through, this new event, the IET Future Tech Congress, was conceptualized to help industry, academia, and government stakeholders use tech solutions to interpret, innovate, and adapt to the emerging demands of customers in the present and also to the future. Now, we're going to talk about how digital twin technology is all set to revolutionize the healthcare industry, to exploring the new and emerging ways that AI powered, IoT enabled factories of the future will function. FTC, as we call it now, will address the future of customer service and consumer understanding, from understanding the value that blockchain and NFTs add to accelerating supply chains, to delving deep into the fintech geared insights enabled by the Internet of User Behavior. FTC will explore the various aspects of operating in an anomaly economy and changing bottlenecks to opportunities using tech. Here is a sneak peek into the future with a small video that we have put together. Let's have a look. So that was a brief insight about what the event is going to look like. You can find out more details about the event by visiting the website futuretechcongress.com. I'll have that in the chat window very soon. Uh, Now, this has gone live a couple of weeks back, and we'll start with the registration soon for this event. But like I said, you can always visit the website and find out more. And if you're interested to learn more about the opportunities to partner, sponsor, speak, you can reach out to me, and we can take that forward. Now, coming back to the proceedings for today and the exciting event and the speaker lineup that we have, it's time to introduce the speakers without any further ado. And let's begin so with our first speaker, Mr. Arun Karna. Arun is an highly experienced technology business leader with more than 33 years of experience in the telecoms and IT industry. He has been with AT&T for more than 22 years and is currently the managing director and CEO of AT&T Global Network Services in India. He is the regional vice president and chairman of the technology committee at the North India Council of the Indian American Chambers of Commerce too. Arun is a sought after speaker and thought leader without a doubt, and he is a mentor and advisor to a couple of young startups in the technology space. He's extremely effective coach and a mentor of teams and is adept at providing leadership in a global and cross-cultural environment. Our second speaker is Karthik Narayan, who is the Executive Vice President and Head of Strategic Accounts for Vodafone Idea Business Services. His mandate is to work with established large firms, domestic and international, and to look to provide integrated solutions across the spectrum of IT and telecom services. As the face of enterprise business for the region, Karthik liaises with local and global business leaders, nurtures supplier and customer relationships, manage financials, and deliver transformational initiatives for the geography. Our third speaker is Monica Gupta, who is the Vice President and Group 5G and Edge Lead at Capgemini. She's also the chair of the Digital Communications Working Group of our Future Tech panel. At Capgemini, Monica is responsible for industry use cases and partnerships globally, plus leading the 5G industry focused mobile lab with over 25 years of experience in the telecom and the IT industry, with huge international experience in senior leadership roles and having successfully executed large transformational and greenfield programs. Her key areas of expertise are 5G for industries, 5G telecom, IoT, digitization, and telecom IT solutions. Our fourth speaker joins us from Stockholm, all the way from Sweden, Niladari Shekhar Dutta, who is the head of AI, tech sales, and data strategy at Ericsson. Niladari is a seasoned professional with close to 18 years of global consulting, pre-sales, product management and innovation, client engagement, and CXO advisory experience in the ICT industry. He drives product and solution innovation around data, analytics, and AI across the portfolio offerings for Ericsson in IT solutions. His expertise is primarily around technology strategy, enterprise architecture, data and AI strategy, digital transformation, business and operational process management, risk and revenue management consulting. Coming to our fifth speaker is Purushothaman KG, who is the partner and heads digital solutions and telecom sector for KPMG in India. Puru has more than 21 years of experience in providing business risk consulting to clients across various sectors in more than 22 countries across the Middle East, Europe, Africa, and India. He has been responsible for implementing emerging technologies across multiple TSPs, telecom regulators, ISPs, broadband, passive, and active infrastructure providers, and DTH companies. Now, coming finally to a moderator, someone who ideated this topic and has put together this fantastic session, Sunil David. He's the co-chair of the Digital Communications Working Group of the IT's Future Tech panel, along with Monica. Sunil is a pretty well-known IoT industry thought leader in India and has 28 years of experience in the IT and telecom industry, of which close to 20 years was with AT&T. Until recently, while Sunil was the regional director AT&T for India and ASEAN for AT&T India, where he was responsible for building the IoT strategy, sales, business development, and also worked on building a robust IoT partner ecosystem. He was actively involved in a number of marketing initiatives to help enhance the AT&T's brand in the IoT space. Now, in this new phase of life, Sunil will be advising and consulting AI and IoT startups that are aspiring for the next level of growth. And now, for everyone in the audience, you have the set of speakers in front of you. And now that I've taken selfishly 10 minutes from your session, Sunil, I hand the baton to you. And I'll see you and the others at the finish line soon. Over
Yeah,
to you.
thanks a lot, Suman, for that introduction. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the participants who have joined us virtually. I understand that we have a global audience from 8 different countries participating. And a warm welcome to all the esteemed panelists as well. I would like to thank IET for giving me the opportunity to moderate this panel. I think it's a very important and contextual discussion given the times that we live in. Just let me share my screen just a second. Just a second, I'm just trying to share my screen. Oh, sorry about that. Right now, before we actually get into the panel discussion, I just first wanted to emphasize how important the telecom industry is. I think all of you all know its importance, but I just wanted to just share some very important statistics. And this is from a report from TM Forum. TM is the body which represents the interests of more than 400 odd operators. And TM, in partnership with Boston Consultancy Group, they came up with a report in 2021. And some of the statistics which I just wanted to share. From 2002 until 2020, $5 trillion has been invested by communication service providers. And last year, perhaps easily 100 billion may have been invested. Secondly, during the first 15 months of the pandemic, 150 to 300 odd million jobs were saved. And that actually safeguarded 8 trillion GDP. And from
Sunil,
a standpoint,
Sunil,
yep.
Sunil, just sorry to interrupt, but if you're presenting, I can see the first slide. I don't know about the others. Uh, you can probably go to the slideshow mode and go to the particular slide that you're talking about, because it's for me, it's just showing this first slide. I don't know about the others.
Yeah, that's correct.
Why don't you try again?
Okay, sure. Now,
Yeah, we can see it.
is it okay now?
Can you put it on presentation mode?
Yeah, I've gone. Can you see it in presentation mode now?
No.
It's not in presentation mode yet, Sunil. It's
Okay, I think I'll just for the sake of
but this is still visible. Go on.
okay, fine. Right. So the other thing which I just wanted to share is that from an India standpoint, as per a Forbes study, during the COVID-19 lockdown situation, the telecom industry in India enabled about 35% of GDP, and while the telecom industry itself contributes almost 6% to India's GDP. Needless to say, online retailing, e-commerce, online grocery shopping grew fastest in the first 15 months. That added almost 4 trillion to global GDP. The other important dimension being that 100 million odd school children, 200 million university students, they were able to continue with their education. And thanks to the high quality and secure networks with the telecom service providers offered. We do have the digital divide. I know there are pockets, especially in the rural parts of India and parts of the world, where networks are still patchy. But by and large, the networks were able to ensure that online education continued. And the last point, I think this is extremely critical, and that actually leads me to the next slide. And that is the social media tech companies, the FANG companies that they call it, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, they generated almost 65% of traffic as per a study done last year, as per the TM report 2022. 65% of traffic is only an account of the FANG companies, video streaming companies, and so on. So we have this paradigm today, and here McKinsey, when they did an analysis of the market cap, revenue, and profitability of the telecom companies as against the listed tech companies, they're finding a very strong performance gap, a growing performance gap between the telecom operators and the big tech companies. So if you just look at this chart, whether you look at revenue, whether you look at EBITDA, market cap, it has actually been increasing significantly over the last 10 years, right? So we have this situation today where the telecom operators have invested significantly in massive infrastructure, right? And we also have a situation where the competitive landscape has changed so much, right? Significant investments made by the operators to kind of keep pace with the successive waves of new technology over the last decade. And most of the value that has been created by this infrastructure has been captured by the OTT players, the FANG companies, hyperscalers, and so on, right? So given this situation, it is absolutely imperative now for the telco to morph or to evolve to a technology company. And what would be the key considerations for that? I'm at a very high level just going to touch upon all these 6 points because we're going to get the panelists to elaborate on this in a lot more detail. First and foremost is customer experience, right? I mean, the need for engaging their customer digitally, cloud transformation. A lot of the telecom companies have moved their applications to the cloud. Platform-based business models. We are seeing many telcos offering, these kind of models where they talk about it from a B2B standpoint or from a B2C standpoint. System and process and automation. I think when you're talking about a technology company, using a lot more technology within your processes, the whole objective is to ensure that you're able to offer better products and services, much faster turnaround to your customers. 5G, that's a segment by in itself. It's a big enabler. And I think for the telcos, I think the important thing is not just looking at it as connectivity, but adding value over that, right? So it's offering 5G end-to-end services. I think that's going to be an enabler for the telcos and also opportunity for them to grow their revenue streams. And the last point which I just want to make is that this whole co-creation of vibrant offerings, right? So it's all about partnerships and ecosystems. So we're going to talk about it, but the need to collaborate, whether you're talking about startups, you're talking about the hyperscale providers. So we have the situation where you might be competing against the hyperscale provider. At the same time, you might be collaborating with them, right? And it's always going to be a journey, right? So for the telco to move to a techno or a techco, it's always going to be a journey, right? The need to adopt digital technologies, I think that's extremely paramount. Given the fact that the telcos do have a lot of legacy infrastructure that needs to be maintained, there is still the high capex and opex cost. We still have infra challenges, and digital technologies definitely will play a huge part. So whether you're talking about network transformation, talking about operation transformation, and the other important dimension being skills, right? So while you're using a lot of digital technology internally, the need to have the right level of skills to manage all these technologies, right? So it's always going to be the journey as you progress from a telco to a techno, right? And to talk about all these dimensions, we have a very, very diverse panel to discuss this. I couldn't have asked for a better panel because we have representations from a foreign telco, we have an Indian telco, we have a system integrator, we have somebody from the consulting side, and we also have somebody who represents the equipment side, right? So I think it's a very, very diverse panel. And let me start by getting in Purushothaman from KPMG. Purushothaman, thank you so much for joining this session.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you've been tracking this telecom sector for close to 4 years now, right? And I had the opportunity to review the white paper that you co-authored last year, Connected Enterprise, the World of Possibilities. And I think there you mentioned that the journey towards being a connected enterprise presents a very significant opportunity for the telcos and the need for them to go beyond being just a connectivity enabler. And the future value of telecom comes from value-oriented services and those that impact customer experience. So, Puru, can you expand on this briefly?
Thank you, Sunil, and thank you very much for having me as part of this esteemed panel. The question that you have asked me, and also the context that you've set, is extremely relevant and very, very important in the more so in the current phase of growth of telcos itself. And telcos have always been uniquely positioned, but have not got their fair share of how they have actually contributed to this digital transformation. Telcos, as we technically and traditionally have known, have always been an enabler, a connectivity provider. But in the last few years, with 4G coming in and with the advent of 5G, globally there is obviously a shift. and the shift has been from a B2C play, which we have traditionally known a telco, to a more formidable B2B play with innovative solutions and products coming in. And the future is going to be B2B2B and B2B2C play that telcos will actually have to partner with. And it's very important that telcos go through this journey. And as part of this thought leadership that you're referring to, we did try and bring in the point that telcos cannot travel this journey alone, because a lot of travel has already been done by technology firms, startups. You have the connected ecosystem of partners who have their own set of capabilities. The SaaS companies and the technology companies realized that very early on when they started bringing in an ISV ecosystem to deliver or co-create solutions. Telcos are actually going through that journey and have in the last few years completely changed the way they approach the entire market. Telcos always had an edge in providing enterprise connectivity, but the play in the future is going to be more towards technology, which is customer facing, and which means that there are five capabilities that telcos will actually be working towards to drive this telco to the techno play. And I like how you represented it. Telcos started moving and started realizing the role that digital will play, and they have actually done a lot on the front office tech and customer facing technology. But the future is going to be technology. But when I say techno play, it is more of platform engineering play. And telcos will have to have an ecosystem to actually bring in the right capabilities. So there are, from how we are seeing the market, there are five or six important capabilities that telcos are worldwide developing. One is a very formidable play in the enterprise architecture space with innovative products and solutions, which my friends Arun and Karthik will elaborate more from a telco perspective on the enterprise play. The second very important area is cloud and cloud transformation. You did refer to it, but the telcos will have a unique role to play because they are not going to be just a consumer of cloud. They are going to be the provider of cloud. Hyper cloud is going to be the future. And the role that telcos will play is going to become very important. The third important play is around IoT. Always IoT and the role that telcos play have been very prominent, but the role had been very limited in the past. But telcos will have to unlock the value of what is the end use of that IoT solution by having their own platforms to deliver it. And most telcos are now owning and driving their own platform and owning the customer ecosystem in that platform. And that's why customer experience becomes again important. The fourth lever is you spoke about the FANG companies having the traffic. The fourth lever that we think is around CPaaS, or communication platform as a service, and the role that telcos are actually driving in that CPaaS play. And the fifth element that I think is very critical is the role that telcos are going to play in the ad tech environment. Telcos are going to run and own their own revenue stream and platformize the ad tech revenue. They are not going to be dependent on external platforms to actually drive their own ad tech revenue. They own the customer, they own the platform, they own their service. So why should they not own the tech revenue and the ad tech revenue? So I think as part of this thought leadership, when we started interviewing multiple companies, telcos, we actually interviewed multiple organizations across geographies, and we came to this realization, and that's how telcos are going to unlock and transition from a telco to a techno environment. And one last thing that I wanted to actually communicate, you spoke about a lot of statistics around the fact that telcos contribute a certain percentage or 6 to 7% to the GDP.
Yep.
With this transition, the way we have estimated it, because telcos are going to also play an integrated role in digital transformation, we also think that they are going to add an incremental percentage to the GDP itself. GSMA has come out with a statistic of around 1%. Our estimate last year was anywhere between 0.5 to 1% additional GDP with more advanced technologies coming in. and this was across sectors, and I can elaborate that in the in subsequently in the webinar. But the future is bright, and most telcos are evolving and are super excited about this journey. But those telcos that are able to create their own differentiation and also upskilling their platform capabilities to drive this will drive the entire future.
Right. Thanks so much, Puru. And I think 5 points that you mentioned: platformization, cloud, uh, IoT, CPaaS, and ad tech. I think I just wanted to pick on IoT because if you just look at the India opportunity, Puru, there are billions of assets which have not been sensorized yet. When we look at IoT, we kind of just scratched the surface. It's a massive opportunity. And imagine if you're able to unlock the value of data from all those sensorized assets, you need a lot more networks to transmit the data to cloud, which means that a lot more opportunities for cloud providers. We need a lot more data centers to be coming up. And also with so much of data being generated, again, that brings in all the AI and analytics players, right? So just look at the impact it would have, by just ensuring that IoT adoption picks up and the opportunity that it will throw open to so many other stakeholders, right? So,
yeah, if I can just comment on that, Sunil, I think you made a very relevant point, and you're an expert on IoT itself. But the way I also look at IoT is IoT is going to become a game changer in the Indian context from two perspectives. One is the cost of devices itself is going to get cheaper with more organizations coming in the manufacturing setup. The second important thing is the use cases that are going to be built around IoT are also transforming. The role that telcos will have to play is owning the entire use case as a solution and offer that as a service rather than just being in the connectivity play. And
right,
one last thing, since you mentioned cloud, telco cloud market currently is less than 3% of the public cloud market. Okay, and with data center and cloud becoming increasingly important in every business, the role that telcos will play in incrementally increasing their share will also drive the way SMBs will also drive the future of technology. So I
right,
think that those are two important levers for the growth as well.
right. Thanks, Puru. Let me get Arun in here. Arun, good afternoon. Arun, AT&T with a 140 plus year history has always been at the forefront of technology, having pioneered a number of inventions and innovations in the past that has had massive business and societal impact. And AT&T is also a company that looks beyond today's technology solutions to invent disruptive technologies that meet future needs. And I can proudly say that I'm an alumnus of AT&T. So your views on this whole paradigm of telcos needing to morph into Technos, Arun, and how is the journey progressing as far as AT&T is concerned? Arun? I think we lost Arun. Okay, let me move to Monica while Arun is trying to fix his connection. Monica, welcome to the panel. Yeah, so Monica, you come with a very diverse set of experiences, right? I mean, having worked with Nokia and Ericsson, who provide telecom equipment and infrastructure to the telcos. Then you had your stint with Airtel, one of India's leading communication service providers, and your current stint with Capgemini, a leading global system integrator, again working very closely with the telcos, specifically in the area of 5G. Now, given this background and considering your current role with Capgemini, what's your view on this whole topic in terms of how telco should morph into Technos? Why do you think this is an imperative, Monica?
Sure, Sunil. So, actually, I'm going to continue the discussion basis the points which Puru raised. So, Puru called out all the different technologies and the different levers which are going to kind of, initiate this shift. But then the interesting part about this is, if you see it, all these five technologies and the levers are very strongly intertwined. So this actually brings in a convergence of all these technologies and all these emerging drivers into one, which itself actually brings a lot of complexity, because this kind of an holistic and overarching, such a massive or a radical shift has not been seen before. I mean, we never had so many technologies and so many levers all pulling and creating this kind of a shift at one time. And then secondly, if you combine this with the kind of impact this can create, so suddenly you're looking at an impact in the industries, enterprises, societies, and individuals. So if you combine just the coming together of all these technologies, the convergence and the potential of impact, this shift is super imperative. I mean, it's a logical progression which is going to happen, and which is where telcos, being the main services provider of connectivity, are what they are going to involve, and which is where there has always already been this talk that the telcos are no longer just telcos, they're digital communication providers, or digital service providers, TSPs to DSPs. And DSPs inherently means people who are looking at all technologies, who are looking at it holistically. To be fair, with telcos, while they're doing this shift, this is not an easy journey for them. And the reason being that they have to tackle digitization both outside, one which is, front ending with their clients, and also digital inside. For them to be able to offer digital services, they also have to become super digital inside. And which is where this is a big radical shift for telcos. They are already on this journey. It's not that this wasn't this has come as a surprise, or this wasn't something which hasn't been recognized by them. But yes, this is not an easy journey. It is it's a big one. And at the same time, as what Puru has mentioned, and as what all the stats also bring out, the impact both for the telcos and for the overall industry and the world is significant.
Right, and great points, Monica. And you mentioned that it's not easy for the telcos, right? Why do you say that? Can you briefly share?
Sunil, the reason why I say that this is not easy is, if you just kind of looked at the convergence of technologies, the different technology and the ICT providers, the roles that Technos, the roles the telcos play vis-a-vis the other FANGs and the other solution providers, and then even the increasing number of stakeholders, right from, now an earlier enterprise business and B2C, it's now become B2B2B, B2B2C, B2B2X, and a lot of intertwining. So it's a lot of change to manage. And managing any change is not easy, and which is where experimentation is key. I don't think one formula or one solution is going to work for anybody. There will be localizations. There will be some solutions which will work, localized for countries and for regions, and then also not one solution is going to work for all. So the best way to find that magic potion or the magic mantra which works for you is only experiment, continuously fine tune, and evolve,
And persevere.
and obviously persevere.
Right.
Absolutely.
I think very good point. You talked about change. I'll come back to that. But in talking about, and that applies to any industry, because the moment you talk about digital transformation, it's less about technology, more about people. And many of the barriers related to digital transformation have been more around change management, not getting all functions aligned. And so that has been the big challenge, and that applies to pretty much every industry. Let me move to Karthik. Karthik, welcome to the panel. Karthik, so you come with what, more than 2 decades of experience in the industry, and I still recollect when you were with Riverbed, we used to interact. You also had a stint with Cisco. You've got 5 years now with Vodafone, right? So, and Vodafone with a 40-year-old history, presence in pretty much every country, right? You all been on this journey of becoming a tech company, right? So, and want to, and how do you envision the future from here, Karthik, in terms of morphing from a telco to a techno? What are your views on this, Karthik?
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Sunil, and the team at IET, first of all, for inviting me, along with some very esteemed fellow panelists. I must tell you, I'm totally loving the session and the comments made by Puru and the observations by Monica. I think first things first is, in fact, we at Vodafone Idea about 2 years back, amidst all the pandemic, framed our next journey as telco to techco. So you use Technos, a bit of a wordplay, so we call it techco.
Yeah.
And therefore, this discussion, and the transformation needed for telcos is a topic very close to my heart. I'm aware that this is a challenge not only for telcos in India, as some of our panelists have spoken, but also across the globe, irrespective of the maturity of the market, right? However, as a telco in India, in fact, in the presentation, in the initial presentation on future tech that Suman was showing, I saw one line caught my eye: customer is smarter and competition is sharper, right? Or something like that. I think nowhere it is as evident as it is in India. I think as a telco in India, it's even more challenging given the underlying circumstances of how the upstream and downstream businesses work here. And just for the audience, upstream business in our case is our prepaid business, and downstream is our enterprise business. It is the most fiercely hyper-competitive market in the world. While the audiences in India might know a bit, for those who have joined across the globe, should know that any time in the last 2 years, if you had gotten yourself a subscription in India, you could have got unlimited voice, 200 GB of data rollover, Netflix, Amazon Prime, premium music, live TV, all of it for $2 to $3 or top $4 a month, right? And then if you compare that with anywhere in the Western world, in the US, Europe, you would notice probably 5, 8, 10 times that particular pricing. It's important to know, therefore, that the India use case and business cases are very different from the rest of the world. It's true for consumer business, but even more true for enterprise, because one can import the idea of some use cases which probably are relevant in more advanced market, but still struggle to make the case, because labor arbitrage is really a strength from India perspective. Now, let me come back to the question on what's happening within telcos. While connectivity is super critical, as I think you mentioned, Sunil, I think we played an extremely critical role in the pandemic. Just to give some statistics, data consumption in the last 3-4 years has moved from something like 1.5 GB a month to now nearly 14 to 15 GB a month, right? At an individual level, and you can imagine in a country where 80% is prepaid, that's a significant amount of usage. It's of course it's a different story that the enablers, which is the telcos, could envision the OTT takeover, and that's regrettably a missed bus for the telcos. However, on the enterprise side, we see a major story. And what we are seeing is and this is the entire ecosystem, including all the other enterprises, from adapting to digital, customers are adopting digital in a major way. And that's the shift around which we intend to pivot around. So as an enterprise telco player, we already have deep understanding of customers, serving them for the most basic of connectivity requirement. What we are doing as a next step is enabling them create a digital workplace in the hybrid environment, and how their employees collaborate, etc., and all that. Connected workplace or digital business, if you will, on how businesses can improve their own internal processes, speed, efficiency, etc., and all that. And finally, of course, digital customer as well, because being able to reach your customers through smart retail or hyper personalization and so on and so forth. So in V business, I think some of the points Puru mentioned. So it's pretty much the same set of product lines or service lines we're focusing on. So we are progressing ahead in our stated strategy of transformation from telco to techno or techco along 4 lines. One is, I think connectivity remains at the core of it. We really call it connectivity plus, so enhancement of that critical piece. And the next 3 pieces really are IoT, cloud, and security. So we are seeing huge requirements and demand which is coming from our customers as we kind of speak to them along these 3 lines, right? I think Puru mentioned on the communication platform as a service. I think that's definitely one place which has really exploded in the last 2 years. I can't tell you the number of enterprises which wanted to enable a COVID helpline, in less than a week's time, and there was really no other service which could have done it except for the CPaaS service that we enabled them with. We also launched managed SIP services, which is an industry first for India, in enabling some of our customers to manage their entire voice infrastructure much more efficiently. I think the second piece from a connectivity perspective that we're working on and seeing a lot of traction build up is the private LTE network. And I think this is one part I'm positive that is going to explode in the next few years, and perhaps I'll speak about it in the next few minutes. I think we also happen to be the first telco to offer integrated IoT solutions. I think both Monica, spoke about the complexity of bringing several technologies together, and Puru spoke about it being that you can't just take one piece of it. I think that's a very important point. Today, you see that just about everybody, in the entire value chain says that they're in IoT, right? People who are doing sensors, people who might be doing application system integrators, so on and so forth, right? But connectivity is at the core of it, and what we've really done is we have brought together best in class partners to offer what we call end-to-end integrated IoT solution. And we are focusing on three separate verticals. Smart mobility is one of them, where we see a huge, which is the entire automotive sector. Utilities, and we call it smart utilities, which is also an extremely important part. And finally, smart infrastructure. So we are seeing good adoption across customers since our launch. Our integrated IoT solutions really powering the entire EV ecosystem across the value chain of tracking, battery monitoring, the charging infrastructure. The solutions have demonstrated ROI, which is, I can't tell you how critical it is, because like I said at the beginning, I think a lot of use cases might look shiny, but I think when it comes to, especially in IoT, when it comes to beyond the POC stage, getting customers to pay for it becomes a huge challenge. But I think some of the use cases really kind of fit in place. Just a word on the automotive part. I mean, that's one place where we've really done well. 9 out of 10 connected vehicles in India run on Vodafone Idea, and I think the reason is exactly that. It's just not the connectivity part, but deep understanding of the automotive industry, its processes, and of course the next generation evolution that is taking place there. As one of our partners kind of put it, it's going to be the third living space, beyond home and office, and it's hence it's extremely critical part. I think the last part is security. I think this is also something, while traditionally the industry has been led by system integrators, OEMs, etc., and all that. But starting from the connectivity piece and onwards, I think a lot of customers have come to depend on telcos for this, especially small and medium enterprises, and we working very closely with them in offering products and services which span across not just connectivity or endpoint security, but including application or cloud and network and so on and so forth. And of course, finally, a bit on the cloud part of it. I think Puru was spot on when he mentioned saying, apart from the OTT bus miss, I think this is one place where telcos need to really focus on, and are a very small percentage of what the market has to, what the market demand is. So we're really working on trying to see how we can, put together a multi-cloud marketplace, both, single cloud, hybrid cloud, if you will. And of course, this will, add to our ability to kind of transform ourselves away from not just the connectivity piece, but across all the other 4 or 5 product lines. That's exactly how we are transforming ourselves, Sunil.
Right, Karthik, I'm just having a problem with the video. I'll just have to try it later. But I think you made one important point about the focus on enterprise. I think for the telco to move to a techno, I think today, if you just look at India, Karthik, for most of the telecom providers, maybe the enterprise revenue would be maybe less than 15-20% of their overall revenues, right?
That's
and
right.
in order for them to move to a techno or a techco, I think that chunk has to go up. The enterprise revenue, that has to pick up, right? I think that will really be where the real growth would come from, right? I think, right. So thanks Karthik for that. Let me move to Niladari. Niladari from Ericsson. Niladari, welcome to the panel. You come to you come here with about 2 decades of experience spanning multiple domains and industries. You have past stints with PwC, IBM, Deloitte, and now this is your second stint with Ericsson. And you've also had a significant exposure to the telecom industry, right, in your previous stint with Deloitte. So how do you see this evolution of the telco to the techno? How do you see this playing out from your vantage point? And given that you've also had this experience in the European market, any learnings that you think that the Indian telcos can consider in their journey, Niladari?
Sure. I think first of all, I'm really privileged and honored to be a part of this panel. So thank you very much for inviting me and share my perspectives. A very warm welcome and good afternoon, good evening, good morning to people all across the globe who are joining from wherever they are. I believe my fellow panelists have already spoken on a number of points which well covers the whole topic. And telco to techno is a buzzword right through in TM forum events and in many other industry events where people are talking of digital service providers transforming themselves. I would like to emphasize on a couple of points which I believe will circle back and resonate well with the audience and also with the fellow panelists here, which perhaps may not have been touched upon so far. I mean, pretty much everybody covered everything for the last half an hour to 45 minutes. First of all, you asked me about the specific experience in European market. I think Europe has been a bit slow as far as uptake of 5G is concerned, and that includes even the likes of Vodafone, where my fellow panelist Karthik is right now working. So even operators like Vodafone, Telefonica, O2. I mean, when you look at the market like US, when you look at the market of Southeast Asia, especially towards the Asian side of things like Taiwan, Japan, Korea, the uptake of 5G was at a much faster pace. Having said that, I think Europe has picked up a lot in the last 15 odd months, and we have been fortunate to drive some of those transformations across operators like the likes of Vodafone, Telefonica, Swisscom, pretty much everywhere. I think one of the key lessons that perhaps the Indian telcos can learn, to your pointed question, Sunil, is adaptability of cultural transition in terms of mindset shift. I think that's something which is at the heart or at the core of this whole transformation. I do not necessarily believe we can do much being a tier one telco when it comes to the enterprise architecture or the classic OSS BSS setup. I have been fortunate to work in an SI. I have been fortunate to work in a consulting company, and now I'm been working in an OEM, which obviously did a lot of SI work in its previous avatar. I'm talking of Ericsson. So I truly believe that the classic vanilla OSS BSS cannot be shifted into a full cloud native environment. It can be done obviously at a partial way, and the tier one telcos across the globe, across markets, are very well cognizant of the fact that however cloud native they want to be, largely the low touch customer experience management systems would be running on cloud, but the vanilla system of records, which are traditionally your ERP, your billing, your charging, your CRM, will still be on a hybrid environment with a mix of cloud and mix of on-prem. And there's always a risk in terms of data exposure, in terms of secrecy exposure, in terms of how secure the systems can be, and more importantly, the cultural mindset change, which I just said. So for me, coexistence is something which the European telcos have very well adopted. So on one hand, they have a digital stack. On the other hand, they have a non-digital stack, and both exist simultaneously. I can give you a number of references from Scandinavia, where I live. The largest telco there is actually undergoing a massive transformation, and I'm sure Monica knows about which customer I'm mentioning because her company is driving the BSS side of things there. So, and we, as Ericsson, we provide our BSS solutions which are being implemented. So I would like to believe that when you talk to the CXOs, especially the COO or the group CIO or the group CTIO, they are very well aware of the fact that however they might have this wide wish list to be a fully cloud native, low touch organization where you only have a skeletal system of engagement with customer experience at the core of everything, which is really at the core of digitization, they're equally cognizant of the fact that they cannot throw away their system of records. So that's one point. The second point, which I think which telcos of the West are doing slightly better compared to maybe the Indian telcos, is adaptability of data monetization, or looking at data monetization as a key strategic driver. I think a lot of people mentioned about cloud. I think cloud is going to be very soon a Me Too service because everybody is anyway doing cloud and cloud transformation. I think the key would be to focus on the network side of the cloud and follow the transition mechanism towards cloud convergence, where platforms would be hosted on cloud and connectivity would be at the core of everything, which obviously as a company we also believe in, and we are betting very high there. But I think the biggest change would come in, or would be highly visible, when you want to look at monetizing data and taking it as a strategic driver, and taking it as part of your overall DNA. I think most telcos are not so successful as far as location. The only use case that we have is location-based services globally, which you can see of monetization of data as a use case. I think monetization of data is something which telcos need to relook at, and also think a bit differently when it comes to engaging with partner ecosystems. I think the sell with model is very, very critical for ensuring that 5G becomes commoditized and 5G becomes a reality in terms of the B2B2X model that we were talking. I believe that in order to make B2B2X successful and in order to materialize some of the massive IoT use cases, which will actually spearhead the growth engine for the enterprise space for telcos, and therefore this narrative of telcos to technos would truly exist. Maybe it will take another 1 to 1.5 years. It's happening, but it will take another 1 to 1.5 years to be fully commoditized and universally accepted as a lever. So that 15% revenue that you are now talking of in terms of enterprise, or maximum 20%, we need to be at that 20, at least beyond 35 to 40%. I think 60-40 split between B2C and B2B would be the stuff that telcos would be banking on. And I think uh, while selecting your partner ecosystem, one needs to be also well aware of the fact that it need not be always providers of specific applications or solutions or services. It also needs to be providers of platform where you can host and modernize and deliver this large scale applications at your free will. So, I'm talking beyond the orchestration layer. I'm basically talking of services which could be hosted at the CNF layer, technically speaking. So any orchestration which we wanted to expose through open architectures or open APIs need to be seamlessly integrated. And that's where I think telcos themselves need to wear the hat of a system integrator. And that's where I go back to my first point in terms of mindset and cultural change.
Right. I think great points, Niladri, in this mindset and culture change. I think, and you also talked about the fact that data monetization. I don't think the Indian telcos have done a great job in terms of monetizing the amount of data that they've collected. Right. I think there's a huge opportunity there. Thanks for those perspectives, Niladri. Let me move to Arun. Arun, welcome to the panel, and nice to have you. Arun, AT&T with a 140 plus year history, has always been at the forefront of technology. You have pioneered a number of inventions and innovations in the past that has had massive business as well as societal impact. And AT&T has always been a company that looks beyond today's technology solutions to invent disruptive technologies that meet future needs. So, what's your view on this whole paradigm of telcos morphing to technos, Arun? How is the journey progressing as far as AT&T is concerned?
So Sunil, first of all, thank you for having me here. Feel extremely humbled and honored to be on the stage with such luminaries. Apologies for the bad connection. You mentioned the importance of connectivity. I think that was brought to life for me very, very succinctly. Thank you for that question also. And I think the speakers that came, earlier to me, Puru, Monica, Karthik, Niladri, they have covered a lot of bases in a very short time. So maybe I'll just concentrate on the enterprise space, which is where I come from. And I would like to paint a picture here before sort of answer your question in all its entirety. So, we know the enterprise IT world is, based on three large pillars. The first is the IT infrastructure. The second pillar is the data and applications paradigm. And the third is the sort of network infrastructure, which connects everything. And what we have seen is that increasingly all these three pillars have been getting more and more software defined and data powered. The earlier speakers have actually alluded to the fact that there's this increased dependency on digital technologies, and we've sort of seen the blurring of the physical and digital worlds, and that sort of change of pace, the pace of change, a change of pace, that's only accelerated. So I think in this scenario, the change scenario, the ever-changing scenario, the role of the telco, the sort of classical role of the telco, has been changing rapidly, and it necessarily has to be driven by a digital first strategy. And in that sense, I would say the role has actually been morphing into what I would call a network centric technologies solution provider. I think Monica also alluded to digital service provider. I would say maybe network-centric technology solutions provider. So that's your techno, by the way. And Sunil, you sort of described that beautifully. That in order to transform into a techno, a communication service provider like us would have to basically look at transforming our whole products and services mix. We have to relook even at our organizational structure, our business models. How do we look at customer relationships and the technology we deploy? And like the other speaker said, it would mean a digital first approach. I would also say it would need a cloud native approach. It would mean focusing the tech skills of the organization to bring forth new digital products, services, and experiences. And this in turn would mean sort of just pivoting the whole skills and capabilities of the technology function itself of the organization. And strategically, again, some speakers have alluded to the fact that where do you invest? So you start investing more in innovation, you start investing more in automation, investing in platforms and platform business models, and basically just changing the whole orientation of the organization itself. Now, again, a quick look at what's happening in the enterprise scenario. We all know that digital transformation is pushing the enterprises to be more distributed and really expanding to the edge. So there's exponential growth in IoT and IoT related data at the edge. On the other hand, the work from anywhere scenario, that means that we need to provide access in a reliable and secure manner to any device anywhere for access to critical enterprise applications. And where do these critical enterprise applications increasingly reside? It's in the cloud. So we've
Right.
seen a massive shift to the cloud for critical enterprise applications. This is the era of hybrid networking. This is the era of multi-cloud environments. In fact, cloud has emerged as a major speed and growth enabler. The adoption of SaaS applications has gone through the roof. So Gartner says that the SaaS applications market would be worth about $200 billion by 2024. That would be up from $100 billion in 2018. So basically, just doubling up in a matter of 6 years. So that's what the enterprises are faced with. That's what telcos are faced with. And in this scenario, I would say telcos are called upon to provide what I would call composable network elements, which can be almost tuned to the ever-changing business requirements. So to give you an example, we at AT&T have built this composable network architecture called TAO, or Total Access Orchestration, which is nothing but a virtualized network infra platform that enables rapid deployment of networks across more than 500 plus cloud service providers. So think of it as a ecosystem which solves multi-cloud adoption and integration challenges for SaaS, for IaaS, for collaboration solutions across a wide range of cloud service provider environments. So it's basically a pre-built virtualized infrastructure, which is co-located with cloud service provider IDCs, connecting to more than 500 plus CSPs with 100 gig connections. And it's sort of ready to take in customers' customizable solutions with standardized building blocks, which could either be a virtualized form factor or even a physical form factor. So, it is coming to that kind of networking in a sense. Also, a lot of focus on software-defined networking. So, network service providers like AT&T are turning SDN into products and services which are greatly benefiting the end customers. So, there's this whole move towards what I would call providing edge-to-edge intelligence on the network. And that basically means providing intelligent applications-aware connectivity all the way from the core of the enterprise network. To one end is the cloud, and the other end are the far reaches, the edge, where a lot of the digital technologies of the enterprises now reside, which is at the network edge. And the other sort of corollary to that is using network function virtualization and SD-WAN capabilities to really virtualize typical networking functions like routing or switching or firewalls or even application optimization, and using those capabilities to build really intelligence at the edge and bringing a lot of compute and analytics power at the edge of the network where it is increasingly required for a lot of the use cases that we've been talking about. The other example is very quickly, the convergence of networks and security, where we are combining SD-WAN with cloud-delivered security services or the secure services edge to deliver the SASE architecture. And telcos like us are sort of trying to deliver that as a managed service now. Talking of 5G, and someone said that 5G is an enabler, and I would say 5G, a lot of the use cases for 5G actually revolve around the combination of 5G and edge compute. And telcos like us have recognized that, and with that in view, we have announced partnerships both with Microsoft and Google to build the 5G edge compute ecosystem. Karthik talked a lot about IoT. That's definitely the case. Telcos as end-to-end IoT solution providers, we are in the thick of things there, and that's part of the, I think, a very important part of the evolutionary journey of telcos to Technos. And lastly, I would say, the making the transformation to Technos also means using cutting-edge tech in our own operations. So, for example, there is a big role of AI and ML in network operations, especially to prioritize automation in the areas where autonomous intelligence is needed to adapt to situations through data and act autonomously in real time to what's happening on the network. Also, for example, predictive analytics in cybersecurity operations. So, I could go on and on, but hopefully, Sunil, that paints a picture of how telcos are looking at this whole scenario and trying to adapt to the situation and make that evolutionary journey from being telcos to technos.
Thank you, Arun. I think you mentioned network-centric solution provider. I think you mentioned that, right? And yeah,
Absolutely.
right. So that's a nice one. And you also talked about edge. I think we're seeing a lot of edge use cases emerge of late. And 5G with MEC, I think that's a very good solution. And then you couple it with the cloud, I think that's a great solution for enterprise markets. And then you also talked about the convergence between networking and security. And Karthik touched upon security as well. I think for the telecom providers, I think that's the most natural fit, right? Networking plus security, taking that to the end customer. There's a lot of value that you can add there when you are able to combine both the strength of your networking as well as your security capabilities. Thank you, Arun, for sharing. So now I'm moving to the next round, and here what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of, have a two-part question. I actually have three questions, but given that we are kind of running short of time, I'm just going to club the question on 5G and also the question on partnerships and ecosystems. I think it's extremely important there because even when you talk about 5G, you need to have that robust partner ecosystem to put together solutions. And I'm going to start with Monica. And Monica, I know that you kind of live, drink, and breathe 5G, given that's your role. So, and you've been working very closely with the telcos across the world, trying to kind of forge partnerships as it relates to 5G solutions in the enterprise space. So your learnings, Monica, from a 5G standpoint, what is that India should be doing? And also, the importance of partnerships and ecosystems as far as the telcos are concerned, Monica.
Sure. Thanks, Sunil. So I think I'll answer the first part of the question, and in the interest of time, perhaps I can ask my other panel members to take care of the ecosystem and partnership. So, my learnings on 5G, and then I'll kind of also club that with the role of the telco and the relevance of the telco with respect to 5G. So, some clear nuances of 5G. So, first of all, it's very clear, I think, to all of us that the real potential and the real market opportunity of 5G is in the industries and the B2B2X. And that itself kind of brings, a big challenge with respect to the adoption of 5G, because on one side, the industries and the enterprises are evolving and becoming more and more digital, which effectively means that they are adopting connectivity and 5G in their core operations. So on one side, you have the market towards the enterprises, and on the other side, just because of the nature of adoption, there is a lot of expectancy and prerequisites on this technology to be industrial grade and to be proven and reliable, something which the enterprises can reliably and properly adopt in their core operations without risking their operations. So that itself creates a catch-22 situation. Now, with that, if you kind of look country by country and you look at the availability of the spectrum, that big discussion around whether the spectrum should be with the telcos or private, that's another thing. And then the other aspect of the technology itself, this technology has been developed keeping the industries and their requirements in mind. So this technology itself is developing, maturing, and we know a lot of key features are coming up next year in release 17, and then also with the standardization of the technology standards, the market availability of the solutions of the devices and all is now happening. If you look at all of these factors combined, what is happening is that the adoption time or the gestation time of 5G is a bit longer, and which is a reality we all have to live with. Is that a worry? Honestly, no, because what we see right now is that all the large enterprises or the big enterprises are right now experimenting and looking at this technology, which is actually helping this technology mature and also helping these large enterprises get comfortable and get more and more starting to trust and bring this technology into their core operations. But then what we are forgetting is once this technology matures, there is the full MSME market, which will adopt this technology once it's ready and then once also it's reached a point of scalability. That market is where only and only the telcos can play. So, all what is needed is perhaps a little bit of patience and going along with this technology shift, which perhaps for once has a longer gestation time. And otherwise, honestly, I do see a lot of potential and a lot of value in this technology and positive outcomes with this technology can bring.
Right, Monica, you talked about MSMEs. So in India, there are 63 million MSMEs, and of which maybe 30% of them are manufacturing MSMEs, and perhaps manufacturing industry would be a good industry for them to adopt 5G for various use cases, right? So it will be a question of how affordable it will be for the MSMEs to adopt 5G, given that they always have challenges related to cost. So that's a different discussion itself. But thanks for sharing your perspectives, Monica. Let me bring in Puru here. So, and Puru, again here, I just wanted to draw your attention from a white paper that KPMG released last year. You called it The Connectivity of the Future. 5G is a game changer. So why do you think 5G is a game changer for the telcos, Puru, and the importance of ecosystems and partnerships? So can you address this two-part question, please?
Sure. So I think Monica obviously covered the importance of 5G for telcos, and we've also elaborately covered that in the thought leadership. What is critical here is, and Monica did allude to some of these thinking that telcos are actually doing. Most telcos, as well as enterprises, are trying to evaluate how 5G is going to impact their own businesses. I did cover the fact that telcos value in the whole process is not going to be just as an enabler but as an accelerator of the digital transformation, which Arun very beautifully covered on the enterprise solution side. Are three learnings that we have been getting from the use cases that we have been studying. These use cases are something that we've studied across Europe, ASPAC, and US. We've identified around 68 use cases. Some of them are with joint partnerships with Ericsson as well. And a lot of adoption is being explored. The learnings that we have is, number one is enterprises are actually looking at why 5G and how is this connectivity going to transform the way they are already going to do digital transformation. So wireline to wireless, and in wireless, why should I not adopt other alternate technologies that are available, Zigbee, LoRa, NB-IoT, as well as, and then why 5G? second important problem that they are also facing is the use cases that are being explored don't have enough precedence or enough gestation period to actually prove the ROI. And this we have seen in areas such as when you spoke about manufacturing and MSME impacting manufacturing businesses and how 5G will impact. One of the learnings that we've had is that the use cases of 5G in precision manufacturing, where there is high degree of accuracy that is required to be involved, is something that is getting tested and very well adopted in Europe. Its use cases in and its implementation in India and few geographies is something that we are trying to work with certain organizations. The third important lever that we've seen is from all the study that we've done in the last a year or so, when it comes to Industry 4.0 adoption itself, the ROI that we are actually seeing has a gestation period based on the use case anywhere between 6 months to 24 months, and that's a period that we're actually seeing for ROI to start kicking in. And the reason why that kind of period is required is because you have efficiencies being driven by technology. Connectivity alone is not going to solve the problem. It is scale along with the technology that is going to solve the problem. So that much period of time will be involved. When it comes to ecosystem, it's a very important question because the ecosystem is developing in multiple areas. You have a device play, you have a product play, you have an ISV play, you have a software play, you have an application play, and the ecosystem is actually coming together very beautifully. And the startups are actually wanting to understand what can they do better with 5G. You might be aware that last year the DOT we helped DOT come up with a hackathon for Indian startups, and there are 100 odd startups that actually have been published who have worked on specific use cases evaluated by the technology institutes on possible use cases for 5G. Now that's a year back. In the last 1 year, a lot of learnings have actually come out of those use cases itself on how effective will it be in each of these industries. So there is a lot being worked upon. What telcos need to try and drive, and I think some of my friends on the call, Karthik as well as Arun, are actually, and their organizations are actually working very closely with specific ecosystem partners for specific use cases. And the reason why you need to actually have that kind of a framework is because you need to invest or co-invest along with that ecosystem partner in driving that solution in the specific industry. And we are seeing that being tested in the Industry 4.0 environment in 4G, and we see that to be the future in 5G as well. Startups are very inquisitive in adopting 5G, and they are willing to partner. And most of the telcos are getting into these kind of strategic partnerships. There are, from our perspective, one last point I wanted to mention is I mentioned about the 68 use cases that we have identified across the different industries. The top 5 industries where we see the most potential is in number one, manufacturing; second, healthcare; third, ENR or energy and life science; fourth is TME, which is telecom, media, and entertainment; and fifth is logistics and transportation. These are 5 industries that we have seen in the order of prioritization, a lot of adoption being worked, and the ecosystem partners are working closely towards that.
Right. Thanks, Puru. Let me get in Niladri here. So Niladri, how is Ericsson viewing the 5G opportunity in Europe? And how is Ericsson collaborating with the telcos, especially in the enterprise market, when it comes to offering a complete end-to-end solution as far as 5G is concerned?
So, Sunil, I'll like to emphasize the fact that although I am based in Europe, but I'm working with global customers, so I'll give you a global perspective more than a European perspective.
Sure.
See, from our point of view, we believe that the entire organization strategy that we are embarking upon, right? And you might have heard that we were also in the news where Ericsson is also realigning its org strategy to be more platform focused, to be more network platform focused. And I think one of the panelists really mentioned, I think Arun, who mentioned that for him digital transformation for telco to techno is really about a network platform play, and fundamentally that's the ethos what we also believe in. What I would like to throw light, I would like to categorize this whole transition transformation journey into three pillars. So for me, the first obviously is the network connectivity and the platform leg, where I believe personally, as well as a company, we believe both near edge and far edge technologies would exist. Of course, data, AI, ML, as well as automation is going to play a huge role in this, because you will not have the luxury to basically take it to an off-site lake and do some analytics. You have to do real-time analytics on the edge itself and provide instantiation of that data in itself. And with software defined networking, I think data is the key here to any ensure that service quality management is right at the core of everything that you deliver. So whether you are part of the demand side, which is being wearing a service provider hat, or you're being part of the supply side, being a vendor hat, I think that's something which is going to drive. So 5G transformation is going to be facilitated by this software defined networking plus this whole network platform play. And at the core of this would be the network cloud, which is going to also physically transform and ensure that these services are rendered at the best possible quality. The second leg is the services leg itself. So for there, I think this ecosystem play that you mentioned many times, and also was mentioned by Puru right now and Monica before, will play a significant role, because the sell with business models that the telcos are going to adopt is going to radically look different. So today, somebody like a Capgemini or an Accenture can be a telco competition. We never envisaged that a Cap or Accenture can be a telco competitor. There always been partners or vendors to the telco, but companies who are in the SI space would soon become competition to telcos as well. And that's a transition in terms of the mindset change, as I said, which brings me to my supporting point on the larger operating model that telcos are going to adopt. So the longer the legacy, the bigger the challenge to transform and transition into this new operating model, and that's the real mantra. So if you want to be like the Amazons of the world, or the Netflixes of the world, or just be an enabler or a facilitator, then I think the best example in all of in front of all of us is Rakuten, or maybe a Reliance Jio. But I think it's not easy to be one of them if you're carrying a legacy of maybe 100 or 50 plus years, facilitating communication at the core of everything. So, and I think the biggest chunk of revenue opportunity for us as a company, and also for global telcos, is in the applications and services space, which would actually ensure that these services are being rendered. Now, whichever 5G bucket you pick up, whether you pick up the EMBB bucket or the URLCC bucket or the MIOT bucket, of course, I personally believe that the EMBB and the URLCC are more consumer focused, whereas the MIOT obviously is enterprise focused. Now, if you want to balance it out between 65-35 split of revenue, where 65 is still coming from consumers, and obviously you want to make money as a telco, so you're not going to get the ROI unless you commoditize and enter the enterprise space, as we all agree. I believe that here is where the game changer really lies, where application will play a huge role, and we have not yet unleashed that opportunity. I think applications, along with services, is actually a larger revenue potential than the platform and the connectivity, which a lot of people don't believe, unfortunately, even today. That's the reality. But that is how the future is panning out to be. And the reason for that is you modernize. Firstly, you migrate, then you modernize, and then you monetize. I think that's the mantra we also believe in. So modernization platforms, which will enable better application development and management, seamlessness of service orchestration across your SD and NFVI and CNF layers, would be the next step forward. So whoever can do that. I mean, it need not be always an SI company facilitating. It can be definitely an Ericsson or a Nokia or whoever in that whole value chain can play the role of that orchestrator, who can amalgamate all services together and roll out on this mantra of modernization, migration, modernization, and monetization, would be the biggest game changer, and the biggest beneficiary of all this in
Thank
this whole 5G play.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Niladri. Let me move to Arun. Arun, AT&T has rolled out 5G in the US, addressing both the enterprise as well as the consumer segments. AT&T is also having, you'll have an innovation studio in Texas, if I'm not mistaken. So any learnings or insights from your experience in the US, Arun, which you think will be helpful for the Indian operators as they start rolling out 5G maybe towards the end of this year or early next year?
Thank you, Sunil. That's an interesting question. So,
And also, Arun, coupled with that, the importance of ecosystems and partnerships. Again, very relevant when you talk about 5G as you're trying to put solutions together.
sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it's an ecosystem play. Absolutely. So, Sunil, I firmly believe that 5G can potentially be the answer to unlock India's potential in reaching the next phase of growth and realizing the digital India vision. Having said that, India has always been different from other markets. We've always seen that. So, a cut and paste approach from other countries may not readily apply. But let me share some of the experiences coming from our US experience. First off, I would say that to make sure that 5G finds massive adoption, we have to have a use case which has countrywide scale and usage, and also probably a large societal impact. So it could be in the area of public safety, for example, or other critical sectors as well. One example from US is that in the US we have built a dedicated 5G network meant for first responders only. It's called FirstNet. So basically, what it is, it's a dedicated communications platform for law enforcement agencies, a fire department, the emergency medical services, the disaster management and recovery services, and it has got a totally physically separate core with priority and preemption across voice and data. So it was initially set up only for first responders, but then subsequently it has been thrown open to other critical sectors like healthcare, like logistics, like utilities, and this has really, sparked off a lot of adoption of 5G in a sense. Earlier also we discussed, a lot of the use cases for 5G actually revolve around the combination of 5G and edge compute, and I think there was a comment or question around that too.
Right.
5G is the enabler in such a case with providing the low latency and high bandwidth right at the edge where the edge compute power is required. So, for example, we found a lot of use cases across all industries, whether it is smart manufacturing, smart retail, or even healthcare. Healthcare, for example, we've worked with the Chicago University Medical Center and the System for Health, where combining 5G with MEC, the multi-access edge compute, has really sort of accelerated their own advancement in terms of how they deal with large, massive medical files with a larger, amount of data that needs to be shifted across in a truly integrated network of healthcare providers. So, those use cases have been been able to be realized only because of the ability of 5G to provide that low latency and high bandwidth where it is required. So, having said that, I would say that for such combos to work, the 5G and edge compute combos to work, what we need is to build what I would call digital ecosystems and digital marketplaces in critical sectors like healthcare, manufacturing, retail, and logistics. And that's where the ecosystem play and partnerships come into play. So
Right.
even if you look at 5G and IoT, for example, these are absolute ecosystem plays where the device ecosystems and the application ecosystems have to come to the party really to realize full value. uh, we need marketplaces and platforms to be created so that it makes it easy for customers to buy almost standardized shrink wrap products and solutions almost off the shelf to address any of their needs. So for example, in the US, AT&T launched its IoT marketplace in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, which is like a one-stop shop that give companies looking for plug and play IoT solutions with a variety of options. So, you talk of devices, you talk of elements, you talk of connected solutions, all under one roof, and but you need the whole ecosystem to come and play there. AT&T can't do it alone. You talked about the 5G Innovation Center that we have in Plano, Texas, that came up in 2021. And the idea there was, again, bring all stakeholders together under one roof. So you have industry collaborators, you have customers. So it's total sort of competition in a sense, because you're trying to bring together organizations from diverse expertise who need to sort of come and play together to really actualize some of the use cases for 5G and what's required for the new world. It's equipped with the latest, wireless and wireline technologies. You name it. Millimeter wave, sub 6 GHz 5G radio, multi-access edge computing, a private standalone 5G network, multi-gig fiber broadband. You name it. It's all there, and it's for everyone to come in and use, get together, collaborate, ideate, innovate, and bring forth new use cases. We've already talked about the tie-up with Microsoft and Google, both for private 5G edge. That's a combination that will combine private 5G with multi-access edge compute to, again, bring low latency services at the network edge. So, these are the examples of ecosystem plays, collaboration, which will really unlock the true value of 5G. Sunil.
Right. Thanks, Arun. I think that first net example that you gave, I think the first responder, how quickly they are able to respond to any disaster, I think definitely replicable in India. I think, that's one thing. And I think you talked about the marketplace also. I think you talked about simplified products and services. It should be very easy for customers to buy products and services. So I think that will add a lot in terms of improving CX. So thanks, Arun. Let me get to Karthik. And Karthik, how is Vodafone trying to unlock the 5G potential in India? And again, I'm coupling this with the question about partnerships and ecosystems, right? So how is Vodafone trying to build your partner ecosystem as you're trying to go to market, providing your 5G solutions, Karthik?
Yeah, thanks, Sunil. I think from an India perspective, of course, we're expecting the auction to happen in the second half of the year. So some sort of a rollout can be expected across in the second half. But I think some really interesting points mentioned, and especially I think during the beginning of this conversation, Monica mentioned that the real usage is really going to be enterprise and on the industries. And I think that's a really important part. I think Niladari also mentioned about the split of revenue as to where the revenue is going to come from. And this is something I mentioned, in my previous observation, saying, this is 5G is not going to be a huge, at least in India, in my belief, upstream, revenue, spinner, right? So I think the consumer case is going to be very weak. I think it's going to be the enterprise industry case, which is really going to drive this. And if that is going to be the case, typically, telco models are really based on, getting revenue from upstream and using that, infrastructure that is created for that to drive, business cases for enterprise. So that's how traditionally it's been. And I think it's important to kind of understand saying, with 5G, it's not just going to be the simplistic understanding, it's just high speed. We are really looking at lower latency, more efficiency, reliability, more device density, which might not really be consumer play, but it's going to be more enterprise play. So that's one. I think the other thing is in terms of where we are seeing, as some of the audience might be aware, we recently obviously got government spectrum to kind of try out some test cases, and I can combine the answers for partnership, because I think this is one particular event which is taking place, this entire 5G rollout, which is going to have very close parallels with what's happening on IoT. I think, like some of the panelists mentioned, there is no one single player who can claim to dominate the entire value chain. I think in 5G it's going to be the same thing. There is going to be unique and singular use cases that individual partners will bring, and I think telcos like us will kind of partner with them to kind of build out the entire story. But what we have really seen in terms of some real practical use cases as far as India is concerned is definitely one on smart construction, especially in slightly more hazardous situations where you can have digital twin, people seeing from remote and being able to kind of work it out in real time because of the low latency. I think other use cases, which by the way has got demonstrated in 4G, and hence the situation will get only further enhanced, is definitely aerial traffic management that we've seen. There is an opportunity, like some of my other panelists spoke about, on smart and connected health. In these two cases, one is obviously real time, which is as a patient is being brought in the ambulance. I think there's a use case there. but also as we have seen during the pandemic with some of the healthcare apps, there's definitely remote diagnosis which is going to get enhanced ability to be rolled out as 5G kind of goes out. Right? So I see some of these really playing out well as 5G comes through. Of course, one of the important points on several use cases, like I spoke about earlier, is the major part of partnerships in the role of how telcos will change to techno. Of course, IoT is one example, like I spoke about. But we feel that as a telco, we'll be at the heart of this service, and hence our value proposition is that we will work with like-minded partners to put forward the best-in-class propositions. That's essentially how we're going to kind of go forward with this.
Thank you so much, Karthik. I'm going to take questions from the audience now, and this question from Pratap. The question is, how would the recent decision on private captive 5G networks, how will that affect telcos and their competitive stance with technology service players and increasing telecom enterprise revenues going ahead? Does anyone want to take that?
Yeah, I can take that, Sunil.
Sure.
So I think it's a more recent decision, just been, and I think the entire situation is still evolving in my view. So one thing about the private captive network is, I think the understanding that we have is quite simplistic at this point in time amongst the different ecosystem players, that it is about the spectrum. I think spectrum is going to be only one part of it. We are working with a lot of industries right now on private LTE. We do feel there is an opportunity for multiple players to be a part of this. But I think as telcos, we deeply understand that the spectrum is only one part of it. I think there's a very large part to the operations part of it that needs to be managed, and hence while the government has liberalized as we speak, and we have to see the further details of it. But essentially, I feel there's not going to be too much of an impact. I think telcos will continue to, in my view, be best positioned to address this space.
Right. Thanks, Karthik. Anyone else wants to take a crack at that question? Monica, Arun?
So, Sunil, I think Karthik has already kind of responded to it. My point of view is that this proposal from the government is more to spur and encourage the enterprises. And like I mentioned before, is the large enterprises who are currently experimenting and validating this technology. And it's clearly mentioned, and as Karthik said, that the situation is evolving. I do not see any connectivity solution without a play from the telcos. It's just not possible. We can't expect everybody to become connectivity and end-to-end solution experts, and this is an area where the telcos excel. But yes, the situation is evolving and it is going to be an ecosystem play. I think the experimentation and the learnings which we do over the coming years will help us find what works best for India. And it is possible perhaps that some large enterprises may want the spectrum for themselves. It's just a matter of having more control over your operations and more visibility. But then again, will that be applicable to all? I don't think so. And again, will that eliminate the telcos? No way.
Okay, right. Okay, I think we kind of completely. Suman, do we have time to take one more, or should we call it a halt here? Because there was one question about edge. How will edge impact?
Yeah,
5G?
yeah. We can take one more. I think we can take one more and then
So
close.
this question is about edge computing. How will edge computing affect the 5G in combination with edge? Is that going to throw open a lot more use cases? Will you see a lot more of implementation of 5G? Anyone wants to take that?
Yeah, maybe Sunil, I can start off, Puru here. So telcos and their unique position with edge I mean, telcos are best positioned to work on the edge side, and the value proposition that they obviously have is that for the enterprises, they don't have to have multiple hops. They'll have a single hop for providing any solution. So the effective cost considering that telcos will be able to service the enterprises, will be will be optimal. So from a cost perspective, telcos will be able to provide optimal solutions. The use cases that we are seeing evolving is specifically in the media and entertainment space, content space, where there is a greater need for media companies to actually go closer to the customer and understand the customer behavior to influence and engage with them better. We are seeing those use cases of CDN and edge computing play for prominent role, and uh, telcos having a very good play in that area. Um, I think use cases are coming out, and telcos are trying to work with their data center edge solutions to actually service them as well.
Right. Thanks. Thank you, Puru. Uh, I think we've completely run out of time now. Gentlemen, Monica, Puru, Niladri, Karthik, Arun, I had to drop off, but thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and perspectives on this very, very important topic, telcos to technos. I think the journey is well and truly begun. I think there is enough opportunity now for the telcos to capitalize on. We have the insight from all of you all. I think most of you all have alluded to the fact that the opportunity exists in 5G and IoT, because that's where your ecosystems and partners come into play. Cloud, not just being a consumer, but also providing cloud service in partnership with the hyperscale providers, right? A lot of opportunity, the enterprise side, and the whole need to collaborate, get all the stakeholders involved, to make sure that products and services can be taken to end customers. So I think it has been a great discussion. Thank you so much once again for joining us, and I now hand over the session back to Suman. Suman, over to you.
Thank you, Sunil. Thank you, everyone, for these brilliant insights. I think covering a topic like this and in its entirety and doing justice to it for the audience is itself a task. And with so many of you, sticking to what the points and the excellent questions were by Sunil, and trying to depict precisely what it is when you talk about the journey from telcos to technos. I think this was a wonderful session, and I think the audience resonates with me on the same thing. I would just like to wish everyone that a very good weekend, and I would like to say that it's been an honor to host this kind of session with you guys, and thank you to the audience who could take time and attend this session. We have gone live on Facebook and YouTube also. You could watch the session recording here on Airmeet if you want to stay back and watch the recording here, or you could go to our YouTube channel and watch the recording of the entire session there. And yeah, that's about it, I think. Thank you. You can see some of these. I'll just show it on the screen. Phenomenal session. Thank you so much, Malini. Somebody has said very informative session from Bennett, and I think more will start flowing in. So thank you again one more time. And like I said during beginning of the event, please do have a look at our website, the itindia.org, and also have a look at the Future Tech Congress website. It's that the event that we talked about, to understand more about what is happening in the world of tech and what the future holds for the customers of tomorrow. And please do feel free to reach out to any of us at the IT to understand more about how to partner and speak at one of our events. Thank you, Niladri, Puru, Karthik, Monica, Sunil, for this wonderful session and super moderation. I'll see you again soon with our next event sometime in the week of 22nd, 23rd of July.
Thank you.
Thanks,
you,
Suman.
everyone.
Thank you
Yes,
so much.
everybody.
Thanks, Suman.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Suman.